The strange cafe encounter the space station was never quiet. Even at night, the wide metal corridors hummed with machines, and the air always carried the faint smell of oil and spice from alien food stalls. Jonas liked that. He liked the mix of voices, the strange shapes of ships docked outside, the way the stars looked brighter through the big glass windows. But today, he was not looking at the view. Today, he was thinking about food. He stepped into a small cafe tucked between a repair shop and a shop that sold glowing lizard pets. The cafe had round tables, soft green lighting, and the sound of slow music that didn't seem to come from anywhere. Behind the counter stood the waitress Dot. She was tall, taller than Jonas, with smooth silver skin that caught the light like water. Her hair, if it could be called hair, was made of thin strands that shimmered blue when she moved. Her eyes were gold, not like coins, but like melted metal, warm and bright. Jonas smiled politely. "Hi, can I get the same as last time?" he said, taking a seat at the counter. The words were simple. Normal, but something changed. The waitress froze. Her golden eyes widened, and for a moment, she did not move at all. The tray in her hands tilted, then slipped from her fingers. The metal cups clattered on the floor, spilling blue liquid that hissed against the warm tiles. The other customers turned to look. Jonas stood quickly. "Hey, are you okay?" But she wasn't okay. Her hands shook. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but no words came out. Then, without warning, her knees buckled. She collapsed, the cafe filled with gasps, a small, green-scaled alien. Near the window, whispered something to the one beside him. Jonas didn't understand the words, but he understood the fear in their eyes. It wasn't fear for the waitress. It was fear of him. Jonas knelt beside her. Hey, stay with me." He looked toward the counter. "Call a medic." The cafe owner, a short creature with 4 arms and a face like a wrinkled starfruit, hurried forward. But instead of helping Jonas lift her, the owner stepped between them, blocking his path. "Should not be here," the owner said, in a low, shaky voice. Jonas frowned. "What are you talking about?" "She needs help." "How do you remember?" The owner cut in, almost hissing. His eyes darted to the other customers, who were now whispering faster, their voices sharp and nervous. Jonas blinked. "Remember." "What?" The owner didn't answer. Instead, he motioned for 2 other cafe workers to carry the unconscious waitress into the back room. Jonas tried to follow, but the owner's 4 hands pressed firmly against his chest. "You wait here," the owner said. Jonas's pulse was quickening. Something was wrong, very wrong. From the corner of his eye, he noticed movement. 2 customers, tall, insect-like aliens, were quietly getting up from their table. They walked to the door with slow, careful steps, not looking at him. Directly, Jonas's instincts told him they were trying not to draw attention. He heard one of them murmur a phrase as they left. Reset protocols failed. The words meant nothing to him, yet somehow they made the back of his neck tingle. He sat back down, eyes scanning the cafe. Most customers had stopped eating. All of them were watching him, some with wide eyes, others with narrowed ones. He didn't know which was worse. Jonas swallowed hard. The hum of the space station's engines seemed louder now, like a low warning. He thought about leaving, but the way the cafe owner kept glancing toward the door told him that leaving might not be easy. Something was going on here. Something that involved him, and something everyone else already seemed to know. And then, in the middle of that tense silence, a small hand tugged on his sleeve. Jonas looked down to see a child, not human, but small, with big dark eyes and short fur like a cat. The child glanced nervously around the room, then pressed something into his hand. A folded piece of paper. Before Jonas could speak, the child ran toward the back of the cafe and vanished behind a curtain. Jonas unfolded the paper under the table. The handwriting was uneven, the letters jagged, but he could read it clearly. "Don't let them touch your head." Jonas stared at the words. A cold feeling spread through his chest. Whatever was happening here, it wasn't about bad food or a clumsy mistake. This was about him, and something someone didn't want him to know. He looked back toward the cafe counter, where the owner was pretending to clean, but kept watching him closely. In the back room, he could hear faint voices, too low to understand. But Urgent. Jonas folded the note again and slipped it into his pocket. Something told him that this was only the beginning, and whatever came next, he had to be ready. Asterisk the whispers in the corner. Jonas didn't leave the cafe. He told himself. He was just waiting to see if the waitress was okay, but deep down, he knew it was more than that. Something about the way everyone had reacted, the fear, the whispers, the paper note in his pocket, it pulled at him like gravity. The cafe's green lights now felt dimmer. Shadows stretched longer across the floor, like the whole place was leaning away from him. In the far corner, two aliens sat with their heads almost touching. Their skin was the color of wet stone, and their eyes were hidden behind dark lenses. They spoke in low voices, their thin mouths barely moving. Jonas couldn't hear the words at first, just the slow, deliberate tone of people who don't want to be overheard. Then one phrase slipped through. Reset protocols failed. There it was again. The same words he had heard from the insect-like pair earlier. Jonas's hand moved to his pocket, feeling the folded paper again. Don't let them touch your head. He wasn't imagining it. This wasn't just cafe gossip. They were talking about him. One of the stone-skinned aliens flicked their eyes in his direction for just half a second. Jonas caught the movement, and the way the other alien's fingers twitched, almost like a signal. The kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't already suspicious. Jonas's mind worked fast. If they were watching him, then they already knew he was listening. If they knew he was listening, they might be planning to make sure he couldn't tell anyone. And then the air in the cafe changed. It wasn't colder. It wasn't hotter. But Jonas could feel it, the way a room feels. When someone dangerous steps inside, the conversations died down. The background music stopped. Even the hum of the station outside seemed quieter. Two figures stood at the doorway. They wore smooth black uniforms with no markings, the kind that didn't belong to any merchant or traveler. Their faces were calm, too calm, but their eyes had the same empty stillness as a locked door. They didn't look around. They looked straight at Jonas. The cafe owner was suddenly all smiles, his earlier fear gone, or maybe just well hidden. He raised one of his 4 hands in greeting. "Ah, officers. You're just in time." Just in time for what? Jonas thought. The officers walked toward him, their steps perfectly in sync, boots clicking against the tile. Each step sounded heavier than it should have, like the floor didn't dare argue with them. "Jonas Marin?" One of them asked, his voice calm, pleasant, but with something underneath it. Something sharp. Jonas hesitated. "Yeah? We'd like to ask you a few questions," the other said, smiling in the way predators sometimes look friendly before they bite. Outside, every instinct in Jonas screamed no. He didn't even know why, but the note in his pocket felt heavier now. "Don't let them touch your head." He forced a small laugh. "Sorry, officers. I'm kind of in the middle of lunch." "It won't take long," the first one said. "We just need to make sure everything is normal." That last word felt wrong. Too precise. Too deliberate. Jonas glanced at the corner again. The 2 stone-skinned aliens were gone. He hadn't even seen them leave. The officers were now close enough that Jonas could see the faint silver sheen on their gloves. Not fabric, not leather. Something else. The one on the left leaned forward slightly. Do you remember your last visit here? Jonas's breath caught. Last visit? The officer's smile didn't change. Yes, you were here before. Weren't you? Jonas opened his mouth to deny it, to say he'd never been here in his life, but something stopped him, because suddenly he did remember. It hit him like a flash of light behind his eyes. The same cafe, the same green lights, the same waitress with gold eyes dropping a tray and fainting, and him saying, "Can I get the same as last time?" His stomach twisted. He was sure he had never been here before today, but the memory was real. The smells, the sound of the tray hitting the floor, the way everyone had looked at him with the same fear. How could he remember something that hadn't happened, or had already happened twice? The officer's eyes narrowed, reading the confusion on his face. You do remember, don't you? Jonas's pulse was a hammer in his ears. And just like that, he realized they weren't here to question him. They were here to fix him. Asterisk the first warning Jonas didn't move. The officer's smile stayed in place, but their eyes no longer pretended to be friendly. One of them tilted his head slightly, like a man hearing a clock ticking down. Before Jonas could answer, the cafe's back curtain rippled. Someone was watching from the shadows behind it. He caught a flash of golden eyes, the waitress. Before the fabric fell still again, the officers waited. The silence between them was heavy, as if speaking too quickly might snap something fragile. Jonas opened his mouth to lie. And that's when he felt it, a soft tug at his sleeve. He looked down. The small alien child was there again, the one who had given him the paper note. Its dark eyes darted toward the officers, then back to Jonas. Without a word, the child pressed something into his hand, a small round coin. Only it wasn't metal. It was warm, almost alive. Jonas kept his hand closed, pretending not to notice, as the child stepped away. But instead of going back to the tables, the kid slipped out the side door, vanishing into the crowded station. Corridors. The officers didn't seem to notice. Or maybe they didn't care. Come with us, one of them said again. Not a request. A command. Jonas's mind raced. The coin in his palm seemed to hum faintly, like a tiny heartbeat. He wanted to look at it, but doing so in front of these two would be stupid. He forced a smile. All right, but I'd like to pay my bill first. The officers exchanged a glance. It was a short look, but in that moment, Jonas understood something. They didn't care about the bill. They cared about time. And every second he delayed, they got more impatient. The cafe owner's voice broke in from behind the counter. He can pay later. We'll send it to his quarters. That wasn't normal. That wasn't remotely normal. Jonas stood slowly, keeping his hands in sight. The taller officer stepped aside, gesturing toward the door. His silver gloves caught the cafe's green light, making them look wet, like something pulled from deep water. As Jonas walked toward the door, the shorter officer fell and stepped behind him. Too close. Close enough that if Jonas stopped, they'd bump into him. Outside, the station's main corridor stretched wide, filled with the smell of ozone and cooking spices from nearby food stalls. But Jonas didn't get far. 20 steps in, the taller officer pointed to a small side hallway. This way. Jonas looked at it. The hallway was narrow, dimly lit, with a faint red glow at the far end. No signs, no people. The kind of place you only went if you didn't want anyone to see. Every part of him screamed. Don't go in there. He stopped. Where exactly are we going? Routine check, the shorter officer said smoothly. Quick scan, then you can be on your way. Jonas raised an eyebrow. A scan of what? Memory integrity. The words made his skin crawl. The taller officer stepped closer, the smile gone now. It's standard for all off-world visitors. No harm, no pain. Jonas remembered the note. Don't let them touch your head. He remembered the phrase he'd overheard. Reset protocols failed, and in that moment, he knew. Whatever they planned to do in that room at the end of the hallway, it wasn't about keeping him safe. That it was about erasing something. Maybe all of him. Asterisk? The memory questioned the hallway seemed to swallow the sound of Jonas's footsteps. Every step made the shadows feel thicker, as if the light at the far end wasn't getting any closer. The two officers stayed on either side of him now, boxing him in. They didn't touch him, not yet, but Jonas could feel the weight of their presence. He kept thinking about the silver gloves, about the faint hum in the coin the child had given him, still hidden in his fist. When they reached the end of the hallway, the taller officer tapped a black panel beside a sliding door. It opened with a hiss. The room beyond was small, and clean, walls of smooth metal, no windows, and a faint, cold blue glow from the ceiling. In the center sat a strange chair. Its frame was a dark alloy, and two curved bands hung over where a person's head would rest. They weren't made for comfort. They were made to hold. Jonas stopped at the doorway. What is this? Standard. Procedure, the shorter officer said, stepping past him into the room. Memory scan and adjustment. Quick and easy. Jonas's voice came out colder than he expected. Adjustment? The taller officer smiled again. Sometimes visitors see things they shouldn't. We make sure nobody leaves with dangerous memories. Dangerous memories. Jonas felt his stomach tighten. They were talking about him. About the déjà vu memory that had hit him in the café. About whatever had made the waitress faint. The shorter officer motioned to the chair. Please sit. Jonas didn't move. That's when the taller one tilted his head and asked, almost casually, Do you remember your last visit here? The words echoed in Jonas's mind. He'd heard them before, in the café, in that strange flash of memory that didn't belong to today. He wanted to say, no, to play dumb. But the truth clawed its way up from somewhere deep. He did. Remember, the green light of the café, the smell of alien spices, the exact moment the waitress's tray fell to the floor. He remembered being here before, sitting in this same hallway, looking at this same door. And in that memory, he had sat in the chair. The image slammed into him. A vision of the curved bands closing around his head. A blinding light. And then, nothing. Just black. Jonas's heart began to pound. This wasn't a first-time encounter. This was a repeat. And somehow, they hadn't erased him completely last time. The taller officer stepped closer, lowering his voice. You shouldn't. Remember, Jonas, that's a problem. The shorter officer's gloved hand rested casually on the chair's armrest. Jonas knew that if he sat, the bands would close, and whatever was still in his head, his memories, his self, might be gone forever. The officers exchanged a look. In that silent glance, Jonas saw the decision. They weren't going to let him walk out. The door behind Jonas hissed open. The waitress stepped in. She was pale, her silver skin almost gray now, and her golden eyes locked on Jonas with urgency. Her voice shook as she spoke, but the words were sharp. Stop. He's immune. The taller officer straightened. You shouldn't be here. She ignored him. You can't reset him. It'll just make it worse. Jonas's brain latched onto the word immune. Immune to what? To their machine? To the memory wipe? The shorter officer's smile was gone now. He knows too much. The waitress took a step closer to Jonas. If you try, he won't just remember. He'll remember everything, every time, every reset. And he'll tell others. The taller officer's jaw tightened. Then we contain him. Jonas's instincts screamed at him. This was his one window to act. The officers weren't looking directly at him. Their focus was on her dot, and in that moment, the coin in his palm pulsed again. Once, twice, stronger this time, like it knew. Asterisk the reset room. The officers were still facing the waitress, their voices. Sharp no. Jonas could feel the tension twisting in the air like a wire pulled too tight. He didn't waste it. Jonas slowly turned the coin in his palm, feeling the strange heat it gave off. There were faint ridges on one side, not random, but in a pattern, almost like tiny grooves. The warmth grew with every second, spreading through his fingers. Up his arm. The taller officer stepped toward the waitress. Leave, now. She didn't move. Her voice was calm, but her eyes flicked once toward Jonas. Now. Jonas acted. He pressed his thumb into the coin's ridged surface. A sound, no. A feeling hit the room. A deep, vibrating pulse that wasn't heard through ears, but felt in bones. The blue ceiling lights flickered. The curved metal bands over the chair twitched and sparked. The officers flinched, their eyes widening for the first time. What did you? The shorter one began, but his words were cut off by another pulse, stronger this time. The metal walls hummed as if they were alive. The waitress grabbed Jonas's wrist and yanked him toward the door. Move! Jonas didn't argue. Behind them, the taller officer recovered fast. Seal the exits. He barked, hitting a panel on his wrist. But instead of sealing, the door slid open wider, almost like the station itself wasn't obeying him anymore. The pulse from the coin hit again, and this time Jonas saw something impossible. The walls shimmered, showing faint ghost images of other rooms. Not past. Rooms, not future rooms, but the same room, over and over, with tiny differences. In one, Jonas was already in the chair. In another, the officers were gone. In another, he wasn't there at all. What the hell is that thing? Jonas demanded as they sprinted down the hall. It's a key, the waitress said breathlessly. And a weapon, and a memory anchor. Anchor? She pulled him into a maintenance corridor, away from the main crowd. When they reset people, everything is erased, but not you. That coin keeps your memories nailed down so they can't take them. Jonas's mind spun. So I have been here before? Her golden eyes met his, more than once. Asterisk the hum of boots echoed behind them. The officers weren't far. The waitress shoved a small device into Jonas's free hand, a clear crystal shard, warm like the coin. If they catch you, break this. It'll blind the whole section for 20 seconds. 20 seconds isn't much. It's more than most people get, she said grimly. They burst into a wider corridor, packed with traders, station workers, and tourists. Jonas's brain told him to melt into the crowd, but his gut told him the officers could track him no matter where he went. Sure enough, within seconds, he saw the black uniforms pushing through the crowd. The taller one had something in his hand now, a thin silver rod glowing at the tip. Waitress's hand tightened on Jonas's arm. If they use that, you won't wake up. Jonas felt the coin pulse again in his pocket, stronger than before. He realized it wasn't just reacting to him. It was reacting to them, and maybe, just maybe, it could do more than keep his memories safe. The truth spills out the crowd, swallowed Jonas and the waitress for a moment, but the officers were cutting through it like blades. Jonas could feel their gaze on his back, like two invisible sights locked on him. The waitress pulled him into a side passage, a narrow service tunnel lined with humming power conduits. The air here smelled of hot metal and dust. She slammed the door shut behind them, locking it with a swipe of her wrist. Jonas leaned against the wall, catching his breath. You want to start explaining now? Because I'm pretty sure my life. Expectancy just dropped to about 5 minutes. Her golden eyes flicked toward the door, then back to him. You're immune. To what exactly? The reset protocol. The mind scrub. The thing they do to make sure no one leaves this station with certain memories. Jonas frowned. Like the one I had in the café? She nodded. Exactly. That déjà vu wasn't déjà vu. That was a real memory from a past visit. One you were supposed to forget. Jonas tried to wrap his head around it. And this has happened how many times? I don't know, she admitted. Maybe dozens, maybe hundreds. That landed like a punch. He thought back. Were there other gaps in his life? Other moments that didn't quite fit? Why me? Why can't they wipe me like everyone else? The waitress hesitated. Because you're human, Jonas blinked. And humans, she said slowly, are rare out here. Too rare. You're from a species built to survive in chaos. Your brains are messy, adaptive, resistant to forced overwrite. It's not supposed to be possible for anyone to resist a full reset, but somehow your kind can, especially the ones who've been exposed to high trauma or extreme repetition. Jonas almost laughed. So you're saying my stubbornness is a superpower? She didn't smile. It's more than that. Every time they try to erase you, it leaves behind fragments. And those fragments build on each other, layer by layer. You're carrying more memories of this place than anyone in the galaxy. The coin in his pocket gave a small pulse, like it was agreeing with her. That thing you're holding, she said, locks those fragments together. Without it, they'd blur and fade, but with it, you keep everything. Jonas's mind was racing now, and that's bad for them because her voice dropped to a whisper. Because the resets aren't just about keeping secrets. They're covering something up, something big. If you remember enough of the fragments, you'll see the whole picture. And when you do, you could tell your people. The humming conduits around them suddenly flickered, and a faint vibration passed through the floor. The waitress's eyes widened. They've found us. Jonas straightened. Then you'd better finish the story. She stepped closer, her voice quick now. This station isn't just a trade hub. It's a memory vault. They've been collecting and erasing knowledge for decades. Entire species histories, evidence of wars, proof of atrocities. They think controlling memory is the same as controlling reality. Jonas felt a chill. And I've seen some of it. Enough to make you dangerous. Enough to make them terrified. A heavy clang hit the door. The first blow. The second came harder. A deep metallic boom that made the walls shake. The waitress pulled a small datapad from her pocket and shoved it into his hands. That's a map to where the vault's hidden. You're the only one who can get in, because you've been there before. Over and over. Jonas stared at the map, the pulsing coin in his pocket, and the door that was starting to buckle under each hit. You understand now, she said. You're not just immune. You're a walking archive. Another boom rattled the tunnel. The locking bar groaned. Jonas looked up at her, and for the first time since this started, he wasn't just running. Then maybe it's time I stop being erased and start erasing them. Asterisk the choice. The door shuddered again, metal groaning like it was about to tear in half. Jonas didn't flinch this time. The waitress stood in front of him, her golden eyes burning with urgency. If they take you, it's over. They'll cut you apart piece by piece until there's nothing left to remember. Jonas glanced down at the map in his hand, then felt the coin in his pocket throb, slow, steady, like it was counting down to something. What happens if I get to this vault? He asked. Her answer came without hesitation. You'll see everything. Not just the fragments. The whole truth. Every erased war, every stolen invention, every crime they've buried. It will all be yours. Jonas imagined it. Memories pouring in, entire histories slotting into place in his mind. And then the next thought hit him. If I know it, Earth. We'll know it. Another boom slammed into the door. This one dented it inward. The waitress stepped closer. But once you open it, they'll come for you. Not just here, everywhere. There won't be a station in this galaxy where you can hide. Jonas's lips tightened into something halfway between a smile and a snarl. So either I walk away and forget, or I open the box and make sure nobody can ever shut it again. Her voice was almost a plea now. If you go, there's no coming back the same. Jonas met her gaze. Lady, I think I stopped being the same a long time ago. The lock gave a final, sharp snap. The door began to slide open. In the widening gap, the taller officer appeared, silver gloves glowing under the flickering lights. His voice was calm again, almost gentle. Jonas, you don't want what's in there. Jonas took a single step toward him, not away. The coin pulsed hard in his pocket, and for a heartbeat, the walls shimmered again, showing other versions of the hallway. In one, Jonas was already captured. In another, the officers were gone. In the last, Jonas was standing in the vault, holding something blazing with light. He knew which one he was choosing. Jonas turned to the waitress. You coming? Her golden eyes flickered once, then she nodded. All the way. The officers moved. Jonas moved faster. The coin flared, a deep, bone-rattling pulse that made the air warp around them. The officers staggered as Jonas and the waitress slipped through the side hatch into the maintenance shaft. The last thing Jonas heard before the hatch slammed shut was the taller officer's voice, cold and certain. If you open that vault, you doom us all. Jonas's voice echoed back through the metal. Then I guess it's a good day to be human. And with that, they ran into the dark, toward the one place in the galaxy where every secret waited for him, and toward a war that had already begun.